Techlandia is recorded at the Central Office on the East Side in Portland. Central Office is a one stop for all your office or meeting needs. Check them out at centraloffice.com.
Welcome to Techlandia, Tao's regular podcast series. I'm Skip Newberry, President and CEO of Tao. And with us is our guest today. We have Andy Harris, who's with Northwest Corporate Law. Andy, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, Skip. Thanks for having me back for round two. Let's make it a great round two.
I agree. You're our inaugural sort of return guest. So I look forward to, we're not going to go into my usual kickoff question, which is, take us through your professional journey. Folks can check out the other episode featuring Andy Harris of Northwest Corporate Law if they want to hear that path. And what I'd love to do is just kind of jump right into it. For purposes of folks who are on the call, I think we can maybe do a quick little reminder of the areas that you all focus on in terms of practice of law at Northwest Corporate Law. And so what's the thumbnail sketch, the quick elevator pitch?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, quick elevator pitch. We kind of tell people we help folks start companies, build them, protect them, buy them, and sell them. So we're really business lawyers through and through. Don't do any litigation work, and we're there to kind of be on the proactive side of lawyering. You help people build these dreams of theirs through the companies and get them all the way to the exit.
Fantastic. Well, one of the things that is great about having someone on who deals with a lot of different companies at their key inflection points as they're growing is you get to see a lot and collect a lot of data points. And we'd love to get your thoughts on some trends. Like specifically, what are you seeing among some of the companies that you're working with? Like what's emerging here among your client base and the companies you're talking to?
Yeah, I think I'll kind of skip the surface here, and then we can dive into some of these points. So I think one is there's just a lot of uncertainty, and that comes through across the board, regardless of the industry we work with or the exact type of company we work with. I think you just hear it, whether it's explicit or implicit, in a lot of clients' voices about they have no idea what's coming the next day, right? So there's that, right? So that's a constant topic. AI, right? I mean, that's everywhere all the time, other than perhaps for, I guess, Main Street companies that are completely disconnected from the internet, which is almost impossible. But that's a constant topic that comes up. Folks are dealing with it. Large companies are really getting into the details of negotiating pretty dense contracts about it this time. There's a lot of risk involved in AI, so that's a constant topic too. And I think people are just generally watching the bottom line a little more closely than they were years ago, right? I mean, interest rates are high, money's not cheap anymore. Folks are raising money still a little bit, but nothing like they were, half a dozen years ago. And I think wealthy have gotten wealthier in the last I don't know 5 to 10 years, right? And everybody kind of under that kind of very upper echelon is just kind of minding their balance sheets a lot more closely.
Yeah, those are all things that I think we're seeing a bit as well, just among our sample size of our members here at Tao. Digging into a little bit the issue of watching the bottom line a little bit more. So you mentioned that for startups and growth stage companies, that there's not necessarily as much sort of fundraising or funding that's going on, at least in terms of the market here. Are you seeing that investors are kind of moving up market and requiring that companies demonstrate a much more traction in terms of customer acquisition and revenue first before they're even going out for, say, an early round or a seed round?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's pretty spot on. Again, going back 5 to 10 years ago, when interest rates were lower and money was a lot cheaper, folks were just throwing it around, and early stage companies with a decent idea and access to money were you're getting checks written a lot more quickly. But these days, yeah, that's right. I mean, the investors want to see some real proof. They want to see market penetration, customer acquisition. They want to see perhaps profitable balance sheets and that sort of thing. So we're seeing where there are raises, there's some kind of smaller friends and family raises in that environment, but those folks aren't really the investors in that world aren't really the sophisticated ones, if you will. They're just sort of the ones who are happy to help their friends and family along. But the more sophisticated money, is definitely paying much more close attention to ensuring there's profitability and much more success on the business side before they're writing those checks.
Are there any companies you've come across that have taken more creative approaches just to seeing how they can get from point A to point B so that they are ready to raise?
Yes, I mean, honestly, this isn't, I guess, great wisdom, but people are just having to expand their networks, honestly, and
Mhm.
willing to give up more equity, right? They're kind of losing the ability to negotiate as strongly as they could have in the past. So I think they're just having to give more of the house away, if you will, give more of the company away, if you will, and that's just kind of that's just the facts on the ground right now. I mean, there's also some platforms where folks can raise from smaller investors, and we've seen some clients do that. I'm not personally a big fan of it because the companies end up with really large cap tables of who knows who, like,
Right.
right? But yeah, we've seen some companies do that too, just to perhaps also just get some more interest out there. So that's happening.
Yep. So I'd say that the takeaway is there are no kind of easy silver bullet answers to that conundrum, but there are companies that are putting in the work to grow their networks and get a little bit more creative. And obviously that's a great plug for Tao because I always tell people you need to maintain a decent network no matter what at all stages of your career because you never know when you're going to need it. And sometimes that network reaches out to you unbeknownst and says, here's this golden opportunity, right? It's like you never know when that's going to happen. Or to your point, when you come up with a great startup idea and you're like, oh, I've got a network that's ready to go, as opposed to now need to spend the next 4 to 5 months developing a network so I can then start fundraising.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm sitting here nodding along. I mean, you're taking the words out of my mouth. I mean, I think I've even said this to my partners recently of sort of like, if the world goes upside down one of these days and AI becomes the nightmare that some people think it's gonna become, you know, my go-to is I built a network, right? And, and we talk about that, and network of trusted colleagues and business partners over the years, and man, the value of that is irreplaceable, right? No matter what happens in the future, whether you're starting a company, going out looking for a job, looking for business opportunities of every kind. I mean, I remember getting out of school when I was in law school 20 years ago, the recruitment folks would come in and say, so I was go build a network, right? We had no idea what that meant, right? You go build a network, but man, has that rung true over the years. With that network in place, the opportunities just continue to stay close and abundant, but without it, when you need it, you're just going to find yourself in a really difficult spot.
Yep. Yeah, and I was going to say too that as I look at sort of who's benefiting right now with the phase we are with AI, I think most people had a this aha moment sometime between December and maybe late spring where they were trying some of the latest versions of the models and had this realization that wow, some of these have improved dramatically since a year ago. And I think back to our conversation a year ago and are you starting to see that take root in some of the companies that you're seeing where they're more aggressively integrating AI into certain parts of their operations? And how do you, like, what advice do you give as companies are starting to, dip their toe in the water when it comes to the risk checklist, as it were?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, for to answer your first question, if you're a tech company, without a doubt, I mean, and that's obvious, they don't need my advice for it. And they know that they have to go in pretty deep on AI at this point. If a company's building software, for example, their customers are going to expect some sort of value add that has AI attached to it, right? So, so those companies, it's a given at this point, right? So, for other companies, I again, I don't think they need so much of us to push them in the direction to start using these AI tools. I mean, they're abundant, they're everywhere. It seems like everybody knows and recognizes their value, even if not all of us know exactly how to use them. But and then as far as risk goes, we're seeing or risk management goes, we're kind of seeing in the larger tech companies as they're kind of selling up market that the folks who are buying, software as a service, for example, from them are being very hesitant in their terms and conditions about ensuring that the liability is going to be staying at the software service provider because those folks, the buyers, are really also just unsure and uncomfortable about what things like confidentiality, breaching of IP, that sort of thing. I think there's just a lot of worries about there about what the outputs are spitting out and who's going to bear the risk of liability if there's any sort of errors in that.
Someone was recently talking to me about kind of where they would kind of analogize where we are in terms of AI adoption, and they use the sort of analogy that with cloud computing, there was this period of time where you had early adopters, and then it started to get more widely adopted across organizations. A lot of times with people putting it on corporate cards willy-nilly, and then eventually CFOs were like, "What is this? We gotta put a stop on this and get some oversight here." Are we seeing something similar with AI, or are you seeing it as something different entirely?
Yeah, I think with the more sophisticated companies, if you will, I mean, they just sort of get it, right? And it's just sort of built in, and the folks at the top are very keen to manage it properly. I think with the smaller companies, there's just not that many. I guess with the smaller companies, so I guess we're talking under 20 employees, perhaps less. There's just not that many sort of governing processes in place anyway, and it's a little bit more of the Wild West. So like they're kind of
Right.
learning as they go, as entrepreneurs tend to do, or small business owners tend to do, and just trying to stay up to speed as quickly as they can. But yeah, as companies grow, those processes get much more in place, and risk becomes much more of a concern. Yeah, as companies grow.
Yeah. And, as you're starting to see different types of companies emerge, there's obviously professional services and software companies that are adopting AI. But then, at least from Tao's vantage point, we're seeing a lot more variety in terms of startups locally, like a lot of deep tech or hard tech companies, robotics, semiconductors, et cetera. What are you seeing in that realm locally? And, what are you excited about?
Yeah, I mean, we see some. I don't know if we've seen some of those exact same companies that you've come across, and you might be more. I mean, you're probably more tapped in than I am, honestly, Skip, with some of those. But I think, I mean, we're seeing, clean energy. Of course, there's that conference that you guys are going to be sponsoring coming up this next week, the Great Transformation. So we're seeing a lot of that sort of work, clean energy, if you will, and perhaps you can explain it better than I can. But so we see a lot of those clients, but some of the other sort of deep tech and that sort of thing, we haven't had a lot of that so far.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm really excited about the event coming up next week, and there's definitely a lot to unpack when it comes to what's going on across the entire grid, whether it's at the transmission level, the new forms of energy that are being generated. As you move kind of further downstream as well, you've got things like the end users, and right now you've got a lot of pull happening with large forms of compute captured in data centers, and those are changing radically around how they're being designed, a lot more moving to the edge and more modularized. I think we're going to continue to see that, and it's exciting to see all the different, frankly, pain points along the continuum, because viewed through the eyes of an entrepreneur, each pain point is an opportunity to create a solution that solves for it.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I'm definitely excited about that space, and I'm excited that you all are helping us add some expertise there too, because there's a lot of challenges around regulation, compliance for all those new companies that are getting going with their solutions. And is that an area that you all are looking to do more in? And do you see an opportunity for sort of Oregon and the Pacific Northwest broadly there to be a leader in some way?
Yeah, I think I would answer yes to both. I mean, it's a fast-moving space, so a fast-moving space where the law is kind of trying its best to catch up, and there's not a lot of certainty. So there's a lot of opportunity there from a legal perspective, without a doubt. And then, just kind of from the being in the Pacific Northwest, I mean, folks, think sort of progressively, if you will, for the most part. And so, yeah, it's kind of a perfect area to be in the country if someone wants to get involved with, clean tech, clean energy, that sort of thing. And last year when you guys put the conference on the first time, it was a lot of it was over my head, honestly, because I just was getting really introduced to a lot of the concepts. And I mean, some of the companies there honestly just blew me away. I just kind of came away from the conference just with a full brain of new concepts and a visibility into entirely different industries that honestly I had no idea even existed. And it was fulfilling and educational about how much the Northwest is participating in pushing it forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said that. I personally I loved the lightning talk that Panthalassa did last year, right as they
Yes.
were just coming out of stealth, and even seeing the
Yeah.
reaction from like some of the larger companies are like, wait, what?
Yeah, no,
Did you
I had
say
never.
floating data centers?
Yeah, no, it's hilarious you said that. I went up to, I think, the presenter after his, presentation, and just told him, I'm just a lawyer in the room, and I just gotta say this that blew me away. I just had no idea that that was even a concept that someone could come up with, let alone a viable company, right? Yeah, and I told him, I'm not here to get anything out of you, but I just wanna tell you, I'm just blown away that this idea is coming to fruition and someone's doing it. It was just incredible just to sit there in the room and to see it, and then I think it was, and again, you probably know better than I do, but I think it was not more than a few months ago, they had a pretty big raise.
Yep.
Yeah, so they seem to be doing very well, but
Yeah, definitely. They're kind of off to the races and, going to scale like fully their commercial production. And it's cool too to see the technology in the sense that, these are big floating spheres and there's like robotic elements and automation involved in how they're propelled and how they generate through fluid dynamics, the type of energy that's used to power the compute, using wave energy. But it's interesting too to see just how quickly these things can be produced, right? So it's like producing a vehicle, not like 3 years worth of construction to build some massive terrestrial data center somewhere. And so really the
right.
only limiting factor is how many of these can you produce at scale. It's wild.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, which is a function of how much money you have, I suppose, and hence the
Yeah.
raise. Yeah.
So good for them on the raise. Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, then Zig 5 also they just made an announcement too that they're looking to go public too. And they were also at the event last year, kind of unveiling some of their latest products from a data center standpoint. That was cool to see.
wow. No, that's amazing. I didn't realize that they were gonna go public, so yeah, it's what a great opportunity, even for someone who's just generally interested in just seeing what's happening in the future of tech and of a certain variety, just to go down and be in the room and listen to it. Again, I didn't really have any expertise sitting in that room last year, and I went away with just a whole different appreciation for for those folks and the people who are building those companies.
Yeah, I mean, I'd spend quite a bit of time with a lot of the companies we work with, and still I'm increasingly surprised and amazed when I hear them present at times. And it's kind of cool that we're almost in this sort of arena where tech is far more sci-fi than it was when Tao first started.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to keep up, to say the least. I mean, you have to be sort of a specialist of a specialist to be at the top of your field these days. But yeah,
Yep.
it's hard.
Definitely. And so from like the changing regulatory landscape, what are some of the things that you're seeing across your client base in Oregon? We can get into your thoughts on the Prosperity Council in a little bit, but just first, like in terms of benchmarking where we've come since last year, have things gotten any easier for businesses in Oregon from a regulatory standpoint?
I think it's been pretty flat. I haven't heard anybody complain that it's worse. I'll say that. And I guess I haven't heard anybody come back and tell me that it's better. But I think people kind of default to, it's not better because there's just such a, putting your politics aside, there's just such a large uncertainty in the country at the federal level, right? That I think
Yep.
that's just kind of dominating a lot of the background noise and in the conversations and the ability for people to make decisions. And so I think, I get the sense that people are more plugged into what's happening at the federal level, and unless they're really following closely what's happening locally, I
Mhm.
think I think that's kind of been receding in the background, or staying in the background. And it's just hard. Honestly, it's just hard for the local governments to capture the headlines the way that they, I guess, should be able to sometimes, right? Because there's just so much coming at us constantly.
Yeah, I mean, especially at a federal level. I mean, just last year, I recall the tariffs and what was it Liberation Day or something like that. I can't remember what
Yeah,
the name
yeah,
was, but it
yeah,
was
yeah.
companies having to
That
throw their playbook out after having rewritten it 30 days before.
Yeah, and we still have clients dealing with that. I mean, even I think yesterday I was dealing with an issue on that. Folks just, they couldn't source product that they intended to source a year plus ago, and that it stopped businesses entirely. It stopped operations growing internationally. This is right out of the mouth of our clients. The whole like segments of these companies just stopped, right? And it's like,
Yep.
even if they had the potential opportunity, they just didn't see the need, or they didn't they it just didn't make any economic sense to invest any more energy into that outcome because of the uncertainty. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And shifting a little bit to, the last couple of weeks with the sharing of the Prosperity Council recommendations, at least in an official capacity more publicly. I think they were leaked, what, twice leading up
Yeah,
to
yeah,
that.
that's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But, with the official ones now out there, obviously a big part of it is calling for streamlining regulations and reducing regulations where possible in the state. What are some of the things that you're hearing from your clients around kind of areas of common pain as it relates to Oregon when it comes to
Y
the regulatory environment?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we've it's I'd say over the last, I'll just say 5 years, we started to get calls, and this isn't exactly on point, but I'll get there. We started to
Mhm.
get calls about people wanting to move out of the state and saying, "Where can I go that's somewhere better? Should I go north to Washington for one reason or another?" Obviously, there's no income tax in Washington. So we've steadily gotten those calls, and people do steadily come to us, honestly, and say, I've had enough for one reason or not another, right? And I'm gonna take off and just go to a lower tax jurisdiction. I'm just gonna go to somewhere where there's just less regulation in general. So those conversations have been kind of background noise for years here, and they've persisted, right? I don't People don't usually reach out to us directly with those concerns, but they come up again and again. And I think there's among the business owners we work with, there's I think there's just this general sense of frustration, right? And this goes to Washington too, a general sort of sense of frustration of, why do I have to fill out yet another piece of paper for what outcome to pay who, right? And it just
Yep.
yeah, and people come in, and when they're starting companies, it's really quick. It's honestly really quick when they're first building the company that they get frustrated with the bureaucracy in both states. And Oregon's not alone. Washington's the same. And it's a constant it's a constant worry, and people just don't want to deal with it, right? And they just want to get back to running the companies, and they don't want to have 4, 5, 6, 7 regulatory agencies, some of which
Right.
overlap, that they constantly have to answer to. And while they're just trying to make a profitable company with and keep the employees happy, so that's constant, Skip. Yeah, that's a constant conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
People.
what I was going to say on that point, it's definitely being recognized more in conversations we're having with elected officials. There's at least an awareness. And earlier this week, we hosted former Governor Gregoire from Washington State here with the mayor of Portland and some local CEOs around, this initiative called Cascadia, the Cascadia Innovation Corridor, and how does Washington, British Columbia, and Oregon work more closely together as a mega region? And the thing that everyone aligned on when it came to where could AI have the biggest impact wasn't like education or healthcare necessarily. Yes, there's opportunities there, but they said first and foremost, how do we apply it in state and local government to improve service delivery and help streamline the regulatory environment? That was the aha that people reached consensus on, which I think is intriguing, and it's telling on one level, right? I mean, it sounds like you're hearing the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. That's music to my ears. I'm so glad that you're having those conversations and these people are responsive to it. Absolutely, without a doubt. And it goes all the way down to, if like we just focus on Portland, there's a lot of business owners. This is a constant conversation. Business owners are sick of doing business in Portland. And I just
Mhm.
don't want to, I don't want to, they love the quality of life for the most part, but like all the problems are right up on the surface and we all see them. So we don't have to act like they're not there. And folks just want to know that, the money that's going into the local government or perhaps the regional government is being used wisely and isn't just being kind of wasted. And there's a lot of frustration. There's just a lot of frustration in the local business community. We're seeing it constantly. So yeah, if those conversations are going on, obviously you just told me they are. That's wonderful, right? I mean, that's exactly what these business owners want to hear. And let's I guess let's see what the outcomes are.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say there on that point is just that to me, I always look at what's the prospect for change, and usually how do the behavioral incentives align. And this is one of those that seems obvious, right? Because revenue departments at cities or the state want to get paid faster.
Mhm.
Businesses want to pay people faster and just have that matter be done so they can get back to running the business. And it's like, okay, how come we can't figure this out?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, it seems like such a fundamentally easy problem. It's almost one you would take to like a high school class and say, "Okay, here's the problem. Why don't you guys all go in the corner and solve
Yeah.
it?"
You know, I think you've got the answer. No one that I've talked to has said this, but I think this makes like the most obvious sense. Like we
Yeah.
essentially just forget about committees of adults doing this. Kids will come up
Yep.
with the answer in a second.
Yep. 100%, without a doubt. Yeah. Honestly, please strike down the committees as many as you can. I'll second that thought. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Oh, have
great.
we reached that point? Yes, I think we have. The adults in the room are our children.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've met a few of them. Yeah.
You know, someone put it to me this way with the Prosperity Council recommendations recently. I think they stated it as like, we should spend money as a state like we're taking it from our kids, which we
I
are.
like that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, that I mean, it almost sounds like a good political slogan, right? Absolutely,
Mhm.
and no, we are. Yeah, it's the truth, right? I mean, the money's going somewhere. Where's it going? Like,
Right.
yeah, and no, I'm with you on that, Skip. I guess I don't have much more to add on it, but that's a great one.
Well, as we're looking at sort of it seems like regulations globally across the U.S., internationally, it seems like there's a trend towards more regulation, more complexity, because the world is more complex, and a natural reaction of most governments is to, well, we need to regulate our way to simplicity. And it's like, wait a
Mhm.
minute, how does that make any sense? But anyway, here
Yeah,
we are.
yeah, yeah.
and and I'm wondering, are you seeing just increasing demand for legal services, and what are some of the things that you often see as kind of like missed opportunities from the standpoint of entrepreneurs and business owners, where like if they could talk to an attorney earlier, you'd be like, you need to start from day one because here are all the things that are typically missed.
Yeah, yeah, okay, there's a lot of yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts here. I'll see if I can answer all those questions, but please feel free to remind me if I miss something. But
Sure.
yeah, so yeah, I guess first time entrepreneurs, they don't know what they don't know, right? They just have no idea. And cash is the biggest concern, growth is the biggest concern, and risk is way down on concerns. So talking to attorney is usually an attorney or a financial advisor or a CPA is usually way down the list of priorities for them.
Mhm.
Because they just want to bring cash in the door as quickly as possible. And if they step on some landmines along the way, they'll figure it out. And that's kind of the perspective. But yeah, I mean, as we all know by now, we've all seen the stats. Most first time business owners and most businesses fail within the first X number of years, and part of it is just dumb decisions, right? I mean, there's is and making the wrong legal decision. I mean, we've seen it countless times that people just sign the wrong paperwork, make the wrong promises, piss off the wrong people, and it comes back to blow up companies, right? I mean, it's just a call a week about that. So that's part of the answer. The other part of the answer is, yeah, legal services for us at least, the demand just seems to keep increasing for us, right? I don't know if there's a ceiling somewhere, but the bars in Washington and Oregon are constantly harping about untapped or unmet legal need. Business law is just one part of that whole equation. But yeah, in our world of business law, there is so much lack of knowledge about where to begin unless you're a sophisticated business owner who's done this more than once, and who to talk to, who to have in a network, the right questions to ask. People are really just kind of blind going into it. And the internet is kind of a double-edged sword, and then AI has become as well, in the sense that it's an abundance of information, but putting aside, recent developments in AI, it has been so difficult to tell who the trusted authorities are.
Mhm.
Um, right? So there's been that. AI has helped that, I think, a little bit, in that the information that's being generated by the prompts is a more authoritative. I think, that's kind of how the AI models are built. So I think people are getting more authoritative, reliable information. But of course, we've all heard the same stories about there's still plenty of errors out there. But information is still just information. Someone has to act on it, and they have to act on it within a context. And the context for us is law and a body of law. And words mean certain things in certain contexts, and they can jump off the page or off the screen to someone as something, but they can mean something else entirely different, to a judge or to a lawyer. So yeah, we still see, even with AI, we still see a lot of people coming in with just complete misconceptions about what reality is from a legal perspective. And demand, I guess, bring that thought full circle. Demand keeps going up, and people keep having more and more questions. And despite all the prompts they're running, there's not definitive answers that they're absolutely going to find.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you've got both cleanup after people have relied on AI for
Yeah.
legal
Yeah.
advice, and then there's also helping people make sense of some of the outputs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the old saying, like, don't bet against lawyers because at the end of the day, they tend to win in most cases.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You can do game theory on a lot of different outcomes, and at the end, lawyers will generally be well off.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, that's fine. I feel pretty secure. No, I feel very secure. I think, especially this far into my career. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens tomorrow. But like I said, no, but I feel very secure. I think there's just such a demand for it, and no one can run a company without complying with the law. So there's always going to have to be an element of complying with the law, and the people who have a lot to lose are going to have to go back to trusted figures who are going to be networked in, and the ultimate arbiters are going to be judges who are lawyers sitting in a court, right? So like,
Yep.
it's at the end of the day, it just keeps coming back full circle to like you're gonna need legal services of some kind. You're gonna need, when you've got enough to lose, you're gonna need a lawyer to give you the right advice. And yeah, that's it's gonna be the reality.
Totally. And I mean, and even as AI potentially like improves or accelerates the throughput of certain types of transactions, that just means more stuff to be reviewed by lawyers and
Yeah,
litigated by
yeah,
lawyers.
yeah. No, that's right. Yeah, in that sense, like the world of law is sort of ratcheted up, right? It's just moving faster, right? It's the problems are being solved, which are creating more questions to be solved. Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right, and I think that's going to stay the course.
Well, I think there are definitely some things that we covered, I think, in our first conversation that maybe have remained a little more static or constant. But I would say a lot has changed in the last year, and
Mm.
it's been really great catching up with you and getting kind of your perspective on both what you're seeing in the market, the regulatory environment, and then also on the part of what kind of companies you're seeing locally. And I'm wondering how has your either listening habits or reading habits changed in the last year? Anything new you'd want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I'm not reading any more or listening to much more entrepreneurial information these days. I've been listening to Scott Galloway. I know he's a popular
Mhm.
podcaster. He's kind of across the board. Yeah, very relatable, obviously, in the sense that he doesn't kind of hold back. So I'm finding a lot of value there. And then I think some of the other podcasts I listen to aren't necessarily business or legal related. They're just more sort of history podcasts. I like Hardcore History, Dan Carlin out of Eugene, Oregon. So he's
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a favorite. He's one of my favorites, but I know that's not entirely relevant to your audience, other than the fact that he's in Oregon.
Which is
So
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah,
And yeah, he's got some really great stuff.
yeah,
Oregon has a lot of gems that more people need to know about in our backyard.
definitely, definitely. Yeah, the Pacific Northwest is not an abrasive in your face culture to say the least. So there's a lot of hidden value on if you pull the rug up, and you'll find it. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. Well, it was a pleasure having you on the show and, would love to have you back again in a year. It'd be great to see how things have changed in that time frame and look forward to seeing you next week at the Great Transformation. Thanks again for your support for that event.
Yeah, thanks, Skip. Yeah, let's make it an annual thing. I'll see you next week, and we could replay some of my statements next year, and you can tell me I was wrong.
Sounds good. You heard it here first.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Andy.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to Techlandia. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, share it with your network, and leave us a review. It really helps grow the show. Techlandia is about connecting you to the people, ideas, and innovation shaping our region's tech community. If you want to support the podcast and its mission, check out the links in the show notes. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep building what's next.